And you believe have written that, anti-consumerism is kind of inherently, has an earth justice, motive to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we mentioned Iceland just a few minutes ago, but I see in the news this morning there was some volcanic eruption, and it's sending, ash out all over the skies there. Iceland, of course, has had no shortage of problems in the last couple of years.
Right.
And again, we do see this all around the world. And yes, each maybe region and state and nation or community have maybe their individual issues or problems, but we want to ultimately be the change that we want to see in the world. And, what relates to me with whatever, may be going on in Portland, but what also may be going on in southern West Virginia, these things do relate and they do connect to all of us. And I think that's the amazing thing about now this technology, that brings us together right now, is the thing that is helping to spread information and spread awareness in a way that the corporate-controlled media is kind of losing control of.
Well, we hope that we break through to the commercial media. There's been significant coal coverage since the disaster, of course, over the last week. And time again, we see the commercial media not mentioning J.P. Morgan Chase. We see the commercial media not mentioning mountaintop removal. They just talk about Massey Energy and their inability to ensure the safety of their traditional underground mining. So they are steadfastly depoliticized. We have to call them on that. But I agree with what you just said, which is that there's a rise of a new media, that we can't sit around and wait for the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times to, the Wall Street Journal is the Republicans, the New York Times is the Democrats. And we can't, they're off in a world of their own. Chase is supposed to be, they're friends of Barack Obama's. Jamie Dimon dines at the White House once a month. And so I guess they're in the Democratic category.
Well, and I think
they're resisting regulation, but they're the Democrats and Republicans are fighting each other. But meanwhile, they're often that's kind of like the center and the right. There's no real progressive agenda there. I'm out here saying that there are new economies that are beginning, James. We say we're in a recovery with its jobless problem, but we're in a recovery right now. And the NPR and all the rest of the commercial media have just gone back to reporting the numbers from the stock exchange and from the corporate earnings. But there are other economies that are rising up as the corporate economy becomes less and less people-oriented. And we see community-sourced agriculture, farmers markets. We see thrift economies. We see skill swapping.
Yes.
We see all sorts of homemade economies where people are rolling up their sleeves and doing that cliched American thing, which is rolling up your sleeves and what do I have to do? So many Americans, not as hysterical as the Tea Party people, but a little bit more, just a little bit more humane and a little bit more ready to work and not shout so much. We're recreating and healing our neighborhoods, our communities, and there's a certain anti-government aspect to that. At least if the government is merely the representative of the corporations, we have to take responsibility for our own economies. That is not something that the commercial media chooses to report. That is an odd little story in the media if it's represented at all. Of course, when we're starting new economies that are basically invisible to the the metrics of the corporate economy, well, then we're not going to be buying ads in the New York Times, are we?
Absolutely not.
Well, they won't report on us. So, but that I'm encouraged that so many people have taken the mountaintop removal and sent it on. Our little mountains inside lobbies, I've just seen those images fly around the world. It's very encouraging that there is a kind of democracy that's insisted on. Even as the FCC and the Supreme Court and so forth, they're trying to gain control of the internet. But as of right now, they're very, very interesting, if underreported things going on. Hallelujah.
Mount-alleluia.
Yeah.
and when we're talking about, these, the center and the far right, that there is no what I've heard referred to and what I like, the conscious left, the real kind of progressive kind of movement, and that's what we need to see the rise of. And I think, and you mentioned the Tea Party, and of course today is Income Tax Day. I'm of the belief that what we see now and what's referred to as the Tea Party really essentially started out under the sort of libertarian, Ron Paul, anti-Federal Reserve, anti-wars, and that has been co-opted by the Glenn Becks and the Sarah Palins and the mainline GOP, that anytime you see a sort of grassroots breakout, they're there to bring you back into the two-party paradigm, because they know that they can't survive if there becomes a viable third, and we could hope for a third and fourth and fifth party. The two parties kind of exist, I think, kind of prop each other up. And anytime, like they try and break away, you see, I believe even recently, Dan Quayle, of all people, urged the Tea Partiers not to go Perot, meaning don't vote third party. We need you back in the fold if we're going to take our country back in 2012. All these sort of things that, again, are there to divide and conquer, and it's Tea Party versus the anarchists and all these dichotomies. But again, I think it ultimately comes back to the banksters and those families and organizations against the regular people.
Yeah. Times are changing. Things are changing. We've been radical Americans before. We've done remarkable things in this culture. And when we gathered in large groups and we did something that was really disapproved of by many and offensive to many, but in which when we abolished slavery, when labor and women, when power was democratized in great strides, there were those of us who were willing to risk our lives. We're at that kind of point now. We sense something in the air is shifting. We'll go out today and take our mountain soil from the blasted wilderness of the old 300 million year old mountains of Appalachia. We'll take that to the ATM lobbies of this $3 trillion bank and take the picture and leave the information with our little mountains and hope that more and more people withdraw their money from that institution.